Something about me is I just love the hustle and bustle of the big city. We're gonna show you guys what makes the energy of this city so exciting. The city's been good to us. Gotham's been good to us. So us here at the Wayne Foundation, we decided the city was so good to us, we wanted to repay it. And we wanted to build a new clean transit system. Fully green rail that runs through the city that's completely carbon neutral. This is the future of Western cities, and we're in it. We were promised that this city was going to be the new Zurich. You know, we have lots of cars here, we have lots of foot traffic. This is an exciting place to be. There's nothing more exciting than living in a tier 1 base, essentially, from Age of Empires 2, where there are shitty units all around, bad cloaking systems, and pre-navigation era electronics. Any self-respecting architecture student who's enrolled at a prestigious institution has to learn these things that I have here. This is essentially a free education. I'm saving you $100,000, $200,000 worth of architectural school days just from reading out of this paper right here. We have the core principles of human-centered design. You know, and you're thinking to yourself, stop. There's a car behind you, cameraman. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm a human, I want design to be centered towards me. But what you have to know is that these people that are designing your cities don't have what your best interests are for you and for me. They don't know what any of that is. They've never been here. They designed this shit, but they weren't here the day after it was built. They don't know what's going on right now. That's why you need a guy like me. I'm like Storm and Norman. I wish I was wearing 2 watches like Storm and Norman in Kuwait, you know? I have 1 watch set to Washington, D.C., and another watch in my head that's set to, what's the Kuwait city? The capital of Kuwait in 1991. Third place theory is a monumental rework of urban design where they say there are people that live in areas known as blue zones. What's a blue zone? A blue zone is where people typically live to be over 100 years old. That's the architectural term. And they say that all these places, what they have in common is they have third places. A third place is somewhere where you can organize and you can have a community that's not work, that's not school, that's not home, a place where you can go and be yourself. Oh, excuse me, I'm burping. Oh, this city looks so good, I'm gonna puke. This city looks so good, I'm puking. Well, I'm puking over here from how good this city looks. What kind of third places do we need? Weed dispensaries, cat cafes, third place theory. We're focusing, and we're learning about what makes a third place special. Let's take a moment here when we get to this plaza, and I'm gonna teach you all about what makes these third places so special. You know, I guess what you really have to internalize when you look at these kind of places, and you look at this plaza, for instance, what are we doing? We got rid of confession, and we replaced it with therapy. We got rid of the village politics of living in a small, you know, inner-knit environment, and we sort of replaced that with digital mob rule. There's not a lot going on here. There's not a lot going on up here. And I'm getting a lot of stage fright because I think everybody's spying on me while I'm saying these things because they're trying to fucking shut me down. You know, here I have me written here because that's all the design is about. It's about me. It's about what's important for me. What's good for thee is good for me. I know what we'll have. We'll have 100 different cafes. We'll have literally 1,000 cafes. What is this, Fashion Week? What is this? We got a Fashion Week going on? That guy looks like from George and Lenny of Mice and Men. He's gonna get told about the rabbits later. But hedonism. I love when things are all about enjoyment. There's nothing of industrial value here. And I know what you're thinking. This kid has been playing too much Sid Meier's Civ 5. I'm playing Civ 5000. That's what this episode is called, Sid Meier's Civ 5000. That's how advanced my Civ is. My Windows 10 so advanced became Windows 11. My Civ 5 so advanced became Windows 5000. Civ 5000. Civ 5000, 5K. 5K. We're doing a 5K run. 5K run around the premises. Committee planning is dangerous in the sense that it lets people think that their opinion matters the same as everybody else's. You know, when you had the 1930s and you had the new school of architectural design and industrial design and Art Deco, you had immense works erected in New York City. New York City, the center of the world, the first ever truly global city. And I'm using a fist here because I don't care about these flowery hand motions that I usually make. New York was a global powerhouse. It was about Atlas Shrugged. It was about the 40s. It was about the 30s and the Great Depression. And out of that horrible, horrible sadness came a powerful city. That's what happened. That's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to these strong industrial environments that project strength. If you live in one of these places where all you have is 100 little cafes and third places where you can entertain yourself with, you're gonna think that all that there is to the world is entertainment and getting a coffee and going somewhere, and then you had to go get a coffee, and then you got a latte after your coffee, and then you got an espresso, and then you went to the Japanese, Korean fusion sushi katsu bar. No. You went to work. And you got to admire a Porsche 996 cab with a beautiful, may I say, sir, a beautiful wing on the rear. Sir, may I just say, people are taught in school that they have to avoid like dead complex design, where, you know, now brutalism is in chic, but it's not necessarily in style. It's not a popular style. You're not gonna get anywhere designing something that's brutalist necessarily. You know, you may be able to tell by the hat, but I was in Boston recently. And in Boston, they have 3 or 4 insane brutalist mega buildings. It looks like something out of Blade Runner 2049. One of those buildings is the mental health facility, which is insane. It's the most oppressive, horrific, brutalist, Soviet committee plan design looking building of all time. And it's the wellness center for mentally ill people. Is someone sad? Why don't you go stare at the fucking 10th floor of this concrete mega building? Come on, class is in session and you're invited. You're not invited, you're being told. You're being voluntold. You can even, I'm sure you can smell it through the screen here. It's just, the city smells like life. You know, but what I really crave and what I desire is not necessarily one of these things where people talk about this, you know, it's about the little people. That just seems so fake to me when people talk about that, when they talk about how important it is to love the little people and love the little village life. You're a liar. I know you're lying. You're like me, I want a big city. My city, big sized. I want huge industrial lots with massive skyscrapers everywhere you turn. I want to go on Reddit and browse r/urban hell and everyone talking about how we need to have these areas, and we're walking through an area right now of the town that's supposed to be walkable, and it's supposed to be, you know, human-centric design. This is our center area that's being rebuilt into a human-centered manner. What do you see all around me, fucking everywhere you go? Cars. What are you people talking about that you think this is what human-centered design looks like? Ridley's Cycle. That's cool. I would love to go in there. I love bike shops. Let's just take a break from the doom and gloom and tell you about something that I do actually love. I love bike shops. I love the vibe of going in a bike shop. I think it's so cool to be there. I think it's awesome. I think a bike shop is really cool. I really do like the vibe because it's just super nice guys. It's like if you've ever been in one of these old camera stores where a guy working there is just one guy and it's his own business, and he knows every single piece of inventory that's there, and he knows how, and he's the one that answers the phone when you call the place, and it's a nice vibe. That's cool. You don't really get that in a small town. You get that exact thing, but you understand how it's different. In a small town or in a village, the inner workings of the village and villager mentality, that relationship is just very dead. You are a fly in a jar, and if you don't know what that means, the flies in the jar is if you let a whole generation of flies birth their spawn inside of a jar, they're only going to be able to jump as high as the lid of the jar. You can sort of keep people keep people oppressed and moderately happy because they think all they're capable of, the whole height of what they're able to reach is that ceiling, that jar ceiling. A city allows you to break free from that mentality that potentially has been instilled in you for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And you look up and you don't just see the sky and the stars at night. In fact, that's something that you lose living in a city, but something that it gives you is the ability to dream bigger. People who live in New York have bigger and more active imaginations than people who live in, I don't know, fucking Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Even then, people that live in a tiny village of 600 people, they can't fathom the big logistical nightmares that come in designing a place like this. Urban hell megacities that you find in China, I guarantee you their productive value is infinitely higher than any of these places where, but the people are so nice, it's just good. You know what it is? It's good folks. F-O-L-X. It's just good folks. It's frickin' good folks and it's frickin' good fun. You are in a dead world. You are in a place that's not challenging you enough. If you want to go, listen, Jeremy Fragrance talks about this. If you want to do fashion, you move to big fashion city center. Where are you going? Paris, New York, Berlin. Maybe not Berlin. Berlin, you know. And this is sort of, it's emanating back to the future. You know, where we're going, we don't need roads. Every Redditor just got fucking hard thinking about the idea that we're gonna have a walkable city in 2 years. Guys, there's gonna be transit laws that make a fully green transit possible for us, and we're gonna be able to walk everywhere we go. No, dude, I'm here for the big city. I'm here for living in the city. Urban planning, industrial design, it's important. It's what we interact with every day. The architects and the new school of architecture is dooming our great Western cities. Something called third place theory is now essentially a mandated theorem that we all have to abide by, we all have to interact with. The number one working theory that these master genius architects have for why people are living healthy, happy, longer lasting lives is that they have places where they can congregate as a community that aren't work and they aren't at home. So essentially you can go somewhere and you can be with other people your age or other ages and you can orally interact and pass down stories, and it's good for the community. And places that they give as examples are like a club, like a fun club, like a nightclub where people can do drugs and hang out together. That's a really cool, fun place. Or a cat cafe where I can go and play with animals and drink a coffee. There used to be an extremely effective style of third place that essentially existed in every single community, and it was called the church. It was called going to church once a week, and you'd see other people your age and you'd see other families, and it was a core way of interacting within family units within a community structure. Now, villages had this, big cities had this. Big cities used to have massive congregations of people who would share in their faith, their community, and they had a common interest, which was the betterment of their community for their children, and eventually, when people used to still think like this, their children's children. Why is that dying out? You know, the removal of the church from society has been nothing but detrimental. Where you used to have confession and you'd go and talk to a priest, you know, modern liberal ideology prescribes you a fucking pill and tells you to go to therapy. The hospital is the new church, and we're all praying at the altar of SSRIs. The old third place being church is something that is completely lost on the architectural school. Why is that not reading to these people? It's because church is actually a really hecking dangerous thing, and we actually can't even enjoy things like that anymore. What happened to the world, man? Literally, what happened? Where 100 years ago, the idea of not congregating as a group of people would have made you seem like a fucking buffoon. You would have seemed like an idiot if you didn't include a church as part of your urban planning for the district, or at least an accessible area. Because then around 45, 50 years ago, when the church sort of started to, disintegrate, little by little, we stopped giving a shit about that kind of thing. At least we had community centers. That's the big problem with the youth, I hear, is all the drug use that's going on. What about if you had just free clubs? That's how it used to work 10, 15 years ago. 20 years ago, you'd have a free club you could go to. Every Wednesday night, we meet, we watch movies, we hang out, we have soda. Where is that now? You don't see things that wholesome like that anymore. Now it's all about the kids worshiping Oblak. It's all about the Oblak jihad that happened in 2019, where they were forcibly, converted to Islam. Even they have their own community centers. Even they have a better sense of community. The people in Oblak. Village politics, where you would feel shame. You'd get fucking branded by people for being the other, for being weird and not being part of the community. Now that's you posting something bad on social media and having to deal with the backlash of the hive mind that is the computer illiterate crowd. We have to increase our media literacy. Fuck you. I post what I like. I can't even read. What is with the hedonism of people thinking that they need 100 little shops where they can go to have fun? I just care about having fun and living to have fun. And I want to have fun when I live, and I want to live to have fun. That's all the world is to these people. We're not all gonna join hands, ideally even. We're not even gonna join hands and sing Kumbaya and have this beautiful melting pot of ideas. Because when people start to think like that, when they start to think that their opinion matters, the same as, I'm not gonna say me, but when their opinion matters the same as another person who's not me, who's, let's say, a person smarter than me, if you can imagine that, that's when you get committee design. And committee worship is so horrible for these people, because committee worship and committee design practices suck. You have, the reason why Soviet architecture worked the way that it did, and the reason why all the buildings were gray blocks and squares, is because you had 15 levels of bureaucracy to go through to get any building approved. When Stalin wanted a building to look a certain way, he just said, do it. He just said, we're just gonna do it right now, we're gonna do it this way. And that's why Moscow has Stalin's seven sisters, right? The seven biggest buildings that were built in Moscow during Stalin's reign, particularly in the 1940s. That's a design dictatorship. That's taking very little input except from engineers, but the architects were just told what to make. Now you have the opposite problem from what was occurring in the 60s and 70s, where people had grandiose ideas and they just had no way to accomplish them. Now we have all the resources and all the material and all the human resources imaginable to make something great, and we're limited because of the bureaucratic ideals of a design committee society, where everybody thinks that their input, well, what if the building actually had a blue stripe? Wouldn't that be sweet? Wouldn't that be killer? And then someone else goes, what if it had a green stripe? And then we end up having a green and a blue stripe. I'm no engineer. I don't know how any of this shit works. I'm guessing how this works right now. So I don't really have any tangible input as to what this is gonna look like in 10 or 15 years, but I'm sure we can guess. If you've had one of these fucking little streets pop up in your city, the shops on the estates if you've had one of these long sentence streets, I like to call them long sentence streets. Me, that's what I like to call them. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Because there used to be historic districts in your city where people would shop. And now there's a brand new district, and it has a crumble cookie and a Cinnabon and maybe a tiny gym and a Korean hot dog place, a corn dog place, and a cool Mexicali style food truck that sells $24 beers. That sucks. All that shit sucks. We have to go deeper. We have to find what it is that motivates us and what drives us to be capable of greatness. And that starts with what you look at every day on your commute. You're gonna be motivated to do something beautiful if you see something beautiful with your eyes. Let's just go ahead and let's go see one of these streets. This place is so funny. The whole dream has come utterly and completely collapsed for we want a fun, cool, and fresh, walkable city. Fuck you. You have another scourge in these walkable areas where you think it's gonna be, let's say, the cameraman and I, we were in Seattle earlier this year. And Seattle has an interesting thing where it's kind of like a local cultural thing, and it's like a really, really cool thing where we go down to Seattle, we go down to Pike's Market, and you get fucking stabbed by a homeless person. And a homeless person can crack you over the head with their longboard. That's what it's about. You're trying to go to the Arc'teryx store, you're gonna be on the news tomorrow. They're gonna show your picture and they're gonna say who you're survived by. I want a full crackdown on homelessness. I want it to be illegal. Because when they dream about these cities where you go and you can walk down to 100 different shops and everything's wonderful, and I'm just gonna go to this chic convenience store and I'm gonna go buy a cookie. And then after my cookie, I'm gonna go get a $15 coffee. And then I'm gonna go get some cool clothes that are inspired by other fashions from around the world. You're going to get stabbed by a homeless person. Because what happened when you make the whole of that society walkable? It's also sleepable on the street. It's also sleepable. You can have a fucking Fallout 2 level raider encampment on the side of your little cookie shop. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Great game. I recommend, that's my game recommendation of this week. Age of Empires 2 AOTDE. You can catch me playing as Romans or Huns with the new expansion. Beautiful, wonderful. The Roman rework where you can build the Colosseum and that's technically a great wonder. Oof, 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 Maron is beautiful, it's magnifico, you know? And that's me learning the Latin. That's me learning Latin from Age of Empires 2. We've sort of began artificially injecting soul into buildings that really don't deserve to have any on the outset. I feel more soul in a Walmart than I do at half of these stores, which is insane to say, right? Prop of stores is Best Buy. That's another tip I have for you. Your third place should be Best Buy. If it's not church, it should be Best Buy. Where you can go and look at electronics. You can go browse, you can have fun. You can sort of, you know, are these people, are they going around to Best Buy? I don't think so. Best Buy is where all the cool people are hanging out. Best Buy is where you can go and see that cutout of Shaq. And the new, if you guys haven't seen, the new Best Buy advertising material is Shaq holding a computer monitor and it says, it's time to go epic. And that's how I feel every time I go to Best Buy, it's time to go epic. Not once have I gone epic at a place here where I'm getting a PB&J for $46. Not once have I felt epic doing that. Not once have I felt epic going to another plaza with another cupcake store and an escape room. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, when I said that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's an escape room and a cupcake place and a pet food store and maybe some kind of wine cellar that's artisanal. All of this sort of dead and soulless design is crippling. All it leads to is just more wasted money that's going to be allocated for even worse real estate developers to come in, clear it, and build something you can't even imagine, but they're going to build something even shittier than what it is now. And this has been a very doomer style episode, but that's because this is something that's been on my mind bugging me lately. Just cut it.